Shalom, Israel. Grace and blessings from God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ be unto you. All praises to the Most High that we made it another week to another Sabbath day, and it's just about the Sabbath where I'm at. Maybe in a few more minutes or whatever the case may be. Definitely by the time this lesson is done, we will be in His Sabbath. So without any further interruptions, I'm gonna go ahead and check and make sure everything is functioning properly. Let me check YouTube first and see how it's going over there. Let me check it out. All right. Let me check YouTube first. Okay, all praises to the Most High. That is functioning properly. I'm going to go ahead and check Facebook and make sure it's functioning properly as well. Let's see. It would appear so. Functioning properly. It would appear so. Check YouTube first. All praises to the Most High. And I'll go ahead and cut my phone on silent. Throw it over here. And yes, so just some news stories that I'm not going to touch on this week. Everyone, or I'm going to say everyone, but a lot of people thought that Trump had died over the past couple weeks. I don't know exactly when it was. Maybe towards the end of last week. It would seem that he got sick, which is funny because I ended up getting sick last week. There was something going around here locally over the past few weeks, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if he got sick as well. But he's alive and well, which may actually be better for the people than if Vance took office, because he's a Peter Thiel puppet. And plus with Trump being like 80 years old, he's close to death's door anyway, right? So he may make it through this term, he may not, because remember, this is still the first year of his term. So he is when would his term end? I guess in 2029. That sound about right? Yeah, at the beginning of 2029, someone else should take office according to the presidential terms and whatnot. But he may be out of here before then. And JD Vance taking office is probably not the best thing for most anyone. Like I said, he's a Peter Thiel puppet. But when it comes to these wealthy elites, especially like former presidents, like HW was like in his 90s or whatever. So I mean, it's possible. It's possible that he survives, because they do a whole bunch of stuff. The wealthier you are, the crazier that the medicine and medical technology is. So he might stick around, he might not. He's an old guy with a stressful job. So we'll see. But as far as I can tell, he's all right now. But with that, what else? Is there anything else? Putin and Zelensky are getting close to claiming peace, but not quite. They're going to keep that going as much as they can. And even when they say peace and safety, y'all know, we've read it before in the scriptures. 1 Thessalonians 5 says, when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh. Right? So, I'm always getting alerts from RT talking about what Putin's got going on and stuff. And even though I never turn my notifications on there, I need to make sure that they're not forcing them on. But regardless, I'm going to go ahead and bring this down. We'll go ahead and get started. Oh yeah, I do want to point out and let y'all know that the new moon for this month is tomorrow. Not tomorrow. I guess it would be Sunday night. So y'all be mindful of that. That is the memorial blowing of trumpets. And I'm not getting into that tonight, but the beginning of the 7th month. It's mentioned in Leviticus 23. It's the memorial blowing of trumpets. All right? It's a feast day, a high holy day unto the Lord. Right? But with all that rigmarole out the way, the title of the lesson this week, and I talked about wanting to do it a couple weeks ago. And all praises to the Most High. I'm able to do it this week, Lord's will. And I know the title is always, Friday night Sabbath lesson or whatever, but I'm going to change the title whenever I get around to doing that. called Mindwar and Psyops. All right. It's not specific, as in like a news story, like I usually do here on the Sabbath lessons, but it is always relevant. You know, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 360 days a year. If you know, you know. According to the Hebrew calendar, 360 days a year. But it's always relevant. It's always relevant because everything that's going on basically is a psyop. And I do want to show the definition when I say psyop. This is what I'm talking about. And we'll get into mind war as well. But psyop, as it says here, this is the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says a military operation usually aimed at influencing the enemy's state of mind through non-combative means, such as distribution of leaflets. And it uses a distribution of leaflets, but it also goes, as you can read down here, psyops use a wide array of communications media, including radio and TV broadcasts, loudspeakers, newspapers, magazines, leaflets, and even comic books to help win or prevent wars. That's Harold Kennedy. All right. So, let's see. Oh, this is a good quote right here where it says, my job in psyops is to play with people's heads, all right, to get the enemy to behave the way we want them to behave, says Lieutenant Colonel Michael Holmes. And that was what Michael Hastings said. Or I guess that Lieutenant Colonel Michael Holmes Hastings, maybe. A CIA psyop campaign. All right, second definition also says someone or something used by the government to influence the population's opinions and attitudes. All right, so either way, it's it's a noun. But I like the more broad definition here. It says someone or something used by the government to influence the population's opinions or attitudes. Right up here, it's specifically a military operation, but I like the general definition a little better. And I believe it's actually short for a psychological operation. It doesn't say that here, but I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. So I got this clip here, and I want to play it for y'all, and I want to make sure that y'all can hear it. I'll mute my mic so that you don't get like a double feedback. So this is I'm not gonna play the whole video. But this is a channel. I want y'all to check out this whole video on your own time because it's actually very interesting. I'm just going to show y'all just a little clip of it just so y'all can understand how this works, how it operates. It says, once you know this, every psyop becomes obvious. Basically, the whole video just shows that most things that are in the media are psyops, right, over the past few years by Chase Hughes here. So from there, I'm gonna go ahead and get it rolling. Let me cut my mic and turn that desktop audio on.
Is following the FATE model: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. This is what triggers the mammalian part of our brain that makes all of our real decisions. The first part is focus. Psyops always aim to hijack your attention with repetition, shocking visuals of fear-inducing scenarios. Some examples are like 24/7 media coverage of a crisis or constant repetition of terms like unprecedented. So with this, pause and ask, why is this message being pushed so aggressively? So compare how much airtime different stories are receiving and note any disproportionate focus. The second part here is authority. Trusted figures might shift their tone or positions unnaturally to support the narrative. So watch very closely for expert panelists or endorsements where authority figures might speak outside of their expertise. pay close attention to that one. Then we have tribe. So messages that polarize opinions or create stark in-groups versus out-groups or exploit our tribal instincts. For example, labeling groups as patriots versus traitors or scientific versus deniers. Be very careful when you hear that language. Finally, we have emotion. So be wary of any communication that triggers strong emotions like fear, hope, or outrage without any clear, verifiable evidence. So emotional responses suppress critical thinking.
Hope y'all got that, because he said a lot. He said a lot there, but the point that I wanted to show is this. First of all, this last quote here: emotional responses suppress critical thinking. Right. So playing on the people's emotions, capturing their focus, using authority figures, appealing to authority, stirring up tribal conflicts, getting people to be tribal, and triggering an emotional response, right? All these things, and as you perhaps you heard some of the examples that he demonstrated there. He said it without saying it, but major news stories, especially since the end of 2019, 2020, pretty much all of them have used these models, and you can go back, probably decades, just like looking at all the different news stories, especially here in America, that have just been major news stories covered by every news outlet. It's all a wash. It's all a game. It's all psyops, basically. So from there, I want to deal with this guy named Michael Archie Aquino. All right. If you don't know, then get familiar. Get familiar with Michael A. Aquino. All right, because there's different Michael Aquinos, but specifically Michael Archie Aquino. This guy is quite literally the devil, and we're going to get into that. It says, Michael Aquino was an American political scientist, military officer, and Satanist. All right? So when we say things like the military's of the devil or the government's of the devil, it's not just, a hyperbolic language. All right? It's not just that, they do bad things. And yes, they do bad things, but there's literal Satanists that are among these people. That are among these, whether it be government officials, NASA scientists like Jack Parsons, or military officials like Michael Aquino. All right. It said he was the founder and high priest of the Temple of Set. That is the modern equivalent of the I believe it's the Egyptian god Set that he's making reference to there. Aquino was also a specialist in psychological warfare, right? Like the psychological operations that we were just talking about and seeing in the video, for military intelligence, and an officer in the U.S. Army. And I do got my mic back on, right? Okay, all praise to the Most High. All right, so we'll get into what it says here, and then keep reading a little bit more about him. Aquino was born and initially raised in San Francisco, California, circa 1961. His family moved to Santa Barbara, California in the context of his father's work. His mother would return to San Fran after their subsequent divorce, where she continued to live in the family's Richard Neutra designed Telegraph Hill townhouse until their death in 1985, whereupon the house became the younger Aquino's residence. He was an Eagle Scout graduate of Santa Barbara High School, later serving as a national commander of the Eagle Scout Honor Society. You see that right there. So that's your whole Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts. All right. In 1964, before enrolling at the nearby University of California, Santa Barbara, where he received a bachelor's degree in political science as an ROTC U.S. Army distinguished military graduate, right? So he was in the Army, all right? Let's see, conferring a then elite regular Army commission in 1968. He returned to the institution after transitioning to the U.S. Army Reserve Service, earning an MA, a master's in political science, in 1976 and a PhD in the discipline with a dissertation on policy considerations for the procurement and implementation of the then all-current neutron bomb in 80, right? So, he ended up becoming a doctor in political science, and his thesis was on the neutron bomb, right? It was on the nuke. Throughout his studies at Santa Barbara, he was mentioned in a convivially, I don't know that word, interlocutory friendship by political theorist Ragavan and Iyer, who maintained a somewhat antipodean approach to the occult. What was antipodean? What was antipodean? Y'all forgive me, I don't know some of these big words that's being used here. Antipodean, antipode is diametrically opposite. Yeah. So, usually referring to Australia and New Zealand the way that they're directly opposite from the U.S. Okay. Let's see. It said, vis-a-vis Aquino's adherence to the left-hand path, right? So they mean that they were into the occult, but not in the way that, like, say, like a Jack Parsons was or is, not the way that a lot of occult members are. They go a different route, right? That's why he founded his own version of the Church of Satan instead of, like, following Anton LaVey, for example. Right, so this is his friend, this Ragavan in Iyer, who I've never heard of, Narasimhan. He's an Indian academic and philosopher. All right. But anyway, as a member of the United Lodge of Theosophists. Now, Theosophy is was founded. One of the founders is the same person. I forget her name. I want to say it's Blavatsky. One of the founders of Theosophy also founded Planned Parenthood, right? And the whole idea there was to maintain white supremacy under getting quote unquote people of color to abort children, right? As a member of the United Lodge of Theosophists, Aquino later earned an MPA in National Resources Management from George Washington University as part of his enrollment at the Industrial College of the Armed Forces in '87. Right, so he big school guy, right? Always going to school, getting degrees and whatnot. Following his commissioning in the Army, Aquino served as a psychological warfare specialist and was deployed in the Vietnam War. He served with the Green Berets in the 70s and early 80s. He was a part-time NATO liaison officer in several European countries, right? So, yeah, as you can see, this guy is not just like some fringe guy. This is a guy who's all up in the system, all right? Whether it be the Army, he was in Vietnam, he was part of NATO, he was all these different aspects of whether it be military, government, he's all over the place, all right? While off duty on one of these tours, he visited Wellsberg Castle, which was used by the SS and Heinrich Himmler, and is said to have performed a satanic ritual there. Now, as you can see here, like this is like the Nazis were big into the occult, and that's why like some of the like Nazi scientists that were part of NASA were big into the occult and whatnot. But the Nazi connection is there as well. As it says here, he performed satanic rituals there at Wellsberg Castle. Where is Wellsberg Castle? Westphalia. Oh, okay, of course, it's in Germany. Okay. Upon receiving his doctorate in 1980, Aquino returned to his native San Francisco, where he served for the next 6 years as an active guard reserve officer at the Presidio of San Francisco. He also taught at Golden Gate University until 86. So again, he became a teacher. So like he's all over the place with this stuff. All right. In 81, Aquino was a reserve attaché at the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. And a year later, he was a student at the Foreign Service Institute, sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. As an intelligence officer, he thus gained access to top secret documents. He later worked as a program analyst at the U.S. Army's Reserve Personnel Center in St. Louis, where he was responsible for human resource issues. Prior to entering his doctoral program, he briefly worked at Merrill Lynch and obtained a license to trade securities on the New York Stock Exchange. In 94, Aquino retired from active duty in the Army, was honorably transferred to the reserves, and awarded the Meritorious Service Medal. All right, so you see that right there. So again, this is not some fringe guy that, oh, nobody's never heard of him, and he was in all these places, but he's just a guy who nobody really liked. Like, they awarded this guy a medal in 94. So you have the private securities connection, you have the Nazi connection, you have the not only the Army but different intelligence agencies, the academia connection. Like, this guy is interwoven into the fabric of American society, basically. You got the NATO connection. So, like, this is not, like, a one-off case is what I'm trying to demonstrate to y'all. Like, yes, this is the most notable of, like, Satanists interwoven. He was the most public and outspoken about it. But this is not just, like, some guy. This is basically the guy. You know what I mean? In 1980, in response to the Vietnam War, Aquino published a paper co-authored with Colonel Paul Vallely called From Psyop to Mindwar, The Psychology of Victory. All right, so understand this guy, and it's about to say this, so I'll just go ahead and read before I talk any further on it. In this paper, both authors propose a new type of psychological warfare to replace or supplement conventional warfare. All right, so as in, hey, let's stop, being barbaric about it, shooting people, right, killing people literally. The term mind war suggests a broader, more pervasive form of psychological warfare that extends beyond traditional psyop, right? So Esau has been doing this for a while, as far as like psyops, as far as even during the days of colonization, they would say, kill the Indian, save the man, as in like transform the mind of the quote unquote indigenous, the Northern Kingdom Israelites, so that they do your bidding, right? So Esau has been doing this for a while. Aquino just, he termed the coin, or excuse me, he coined the term mind war, right? And the specific tactics that are used today are the ones that he, kind of tweaked and finalized, so to speak. Perfected, if you want to use those words. All right, it may involve the use of media, information technology, and other forms of communication to influence both enemy forces and civilian populations, right? So not just the army of the opposing side, but also civilian populations around the world. All right, using media, using technology, right, like cell phones or televisions. All right, what else? Tablets and whatnot, right? And other forms of communication, right? So a measure such as electromagnetic waves or ionizing the air are also proposed to influence or manipulate civilians, right? So in extreme measures, they will use like direct energy weapons, right? That's what this is going into. But as far as establishment of his sect of Satanism, let's go ahead and read this. In 1969, he joined the Church of Satan, led by Anton LaVey, which Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan are, you would think with them being called the Church of Satan, that they, worship Satan directly. But that's not what Satanism is. That's Luciferianism. Satanism is the worship of yourself, right? Remember what the serpent told Eve in the garden, ye shall be as gods, right? So that's the message of Anton LaVey, essentially. But Aquino, again, as we read earlier, he was into the occult, he was into the theosophy, he was into the left-hand path of Satanism and the occult, as in he actually wanted to worship Satan. He actually wanted to, or I guess specifically Set, right? He actually wanted to be into all the stuff that Anton LaVey was not into, all right? In 1969, he joined the Church of Satan, led by Anton LaVey, and quickly rose through the ranks of the group. By 1971, Aquino had been appointed Magister Caverns of the 4th degree within the church hierarchy, was the editor of the publication The Cloven Hoof, and sat on the governing council of the Nine. However, conflicts arose over time between LaVey and Aquino regarding the direction of the group. Right, as I just described, they had different philosophies concerning what the Church of Satan should be about. The latter rejected LaVey's atheism and materialism. Right, as I was just demonstrating, LaVey didn't actually worship Satan directly. That was not his message. When he started selling positions in the Church of Satan for money, Aquino finally left the group in 1975. Right, so Aquino was like, "Look, I don't care about money. I just want to worship the devil." That's basically what Aquino was about. All right. After he left the Church of Satan, he started a ritual in which he asked Satan for advice on what to do next. According to him, Satan appeared to him in the summer of 1975 and revealed to him that he wanted to be called Set, a name that his worshippers in ancient Egypt are said to have used. You see that right there? So when you start conjuring like spirits, you don't actually know what spirit you're going to conjure. You may call out to what, like he may have been calling out for Satan, but it's clear that the spirit behind the pagan god Set appeared to him, right? And like, hey, worship me, right? That's pretty much what happened here. Aquino produced a religious text, the Book of Coming Forth by Night, which he claimed was revealed to him by Set in a process of automatic writing, right? So like he would channel the demon and write whatever the demon told him to write. The book proclaimed Aquino Magus of the new Eon of Set and heir to LaVey's infernal mandate. On this basis, he founded the Temple of Set, which is dedicated to the worship of Set. In contrast to LaVey's approach, this group has an occult and hermetic orientation. Hermetic in this context means what? Oh, the philosophical and religious tradition. All right. Aquino's orientation was strongly influenced by the work of the British occultist Aleister Crowley. And that's another big devil who maybe I'll get into him at some point. But Aleister Crowley has influences everywhere from the Beatles to Jay-Z, right? So many people have been influenced by Aleister Crowley, who taught, who also did similar things that Aquino did, as far as like summoning spirits who told him certain things. The spirit that Aleister Crowley channeled, I forget what the spirit's name was or whatever, but it told him that like, hey, just tell everybody to do what you want to do, right? So that was more like Anton LaVey's mindset of do as thou wilt, is specifically what Aleister Crowley was told. The group's aim is self-deification, right? So that's, again, the same mindset that LaVey had. They had just had different means of going about it, which it pursues by performing rituals and practicing black magic. Exactly. LaVey didn't do that. He just said, hey, worship yourself and do whatever you want to do. Aquino took it one step further and said, look, hey, let's get into the occult and summon demons and things like that, which it pursues by performing rituals and practicing black magic, among other things. In 1975, the Temple of Set was registered as a non-profit church in California and received state and federal recognition and tax exemption that same year. You see that right there? So people talk about the U.S. as a Christian nation. You clearly don't know what the U.S. is about. It's about everybody doing what they want to do, right? Including people who worship the devil, quite literally, all right? All right. So it says Aquino remained the temple's high priest until 79, when he handed over the role to Ronald Keith Barrett, who, following disputes, also founded his own satanic sect, the Temple of Anubis, a few years later. Aquino was high priest again between 82 and 96, and between 2002 and 2004, right? So obviously with Satan, they can't stand together, right? The house of Satan, house divided against itself, shall not stand. Satan just causes confusion, so of course there's always these breaks. So let's get into these pedo allegations. All right. In 86, the San Francisco police began investigating allegations of sexual abuse in connection with the Army's Child Development Center at the Presidio of San Francisco. A girl came forward in 87 and identified Aquino as the culprit. At least 58 out of 100 children who had attended the daycare center showed physical and mental signs of abuse, leading to a lawsuit by the parents for $60 million in damages. An investigation against Aquino was launched, but it was closed after insufficient evidence was found. Right? So, at this place where he was, it says at least 58 out of 100 children were abused. Right? So, whether he did the abusing, which the kids said he did, by the way, because it said a girl came forward in 87 and identified Aquino as the culprit, right? So the kids said that he was the one who did it, and he is a very specific looking guy, right? It's not like you can mix this guy up with somebody else, especially with those evil looking eyebrows. All right. And then it goes on to like talk about the Nazism and stuff. Let's see. So I'll finish out this and then jump down. John DeCamp, a Republican politician and former member of the Nebraska legislature, linked Aquino to the Franklin child prostitution ring allegations, and the whole Franklin scandal is huge, right? It's something that people don't talk about enough. But it was the Epstein before Epstein, essentially. He would later accuse Aquino of having established contacts to the right-wing extremists in Europe as the leader of a group called Monarch, which may have been connected to Operation Gladio. I believe that was in Italy, right? Operation Gladio was in Italy. Okay, I guess it's just generally. So it's just generally in Europe, Operation Gladio was. However, no charges were filed, and a grand jury dismissed the entire case in 1990. Writer and publisher Mitch Horowitz, in addition to correcting the date of Aquino's death, has noted that investigators found that in the weeks of the claimed incident, the Aquinos were not residing in San Francisco, but instead in Washington, D.C., where Aquino was enrolled in a graduate public administration program under the auspices of the Industrial College of the Armed Forces. Although no charges were filed, a continuation board ended Aquino's full-time active guard reserve contract in 1990, while Aquino said that he continued to serve as a decorated, by virtue of his meritorious service medal, part-time space activities officer until his required superannuation under the U.S. Army's Up or Out statutes in 94. This decision essentially forestalled any subsequent promotion or advancement of his military career. The Aquinos, Horowitz wrote, unsuccessfully attempted legal action against the girl's chaplain father and an Army psychiatrist who stoked the false claims. But the couple faced the barrier of gravitating between civilian and military law. Horowitz further wrote that Aquino and wife settled legal actions against two accusatory books out of court. Right, so he went and sued anybody who tried to accuse him, tried to bring forth these allegations, which we know whether he was staying in D.C. at the time or not, he had connections to this place, right? And he was all over the place, right? So we read that about him. So just because he was staying in D.C. at the time does not mean he had no connection with what was going on here, right? It could have been he was having someone do it. It could have been he was trafficking as part of the Franklin child prosecution ring. Prostitution ring. So it come on now. I'll go back, and I ain't gonna necessarily. I'm just gonna talk about his death and whatnot. We'll get on out of this. I'm not gonna talk about like the Nazi stuff. It said after a long illness, Aquino died at 6:08 p.m. September 1st, 2019, at 72 years of age from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. You see that right there. So he ended up offing himself. I don't know what YouTube actually allows you to say anymore. So, you know, I got to put things a certain type of way. But his books that he wrote under the psychological warfare, he wrote From Psyops to Mindwar, as we talked about, the neutron bomb, Mindwar, Mind Star, Find Far, the Church of Satan, Black Magic, the Church of Satan 1, the Church of Satan 2, the Temple of Set 1, the Temple of Set 2, Illuminax, Rosicrucianism, Reawakened. He also wrote the Satanic Bible and Ghost Rides and Fire Force, a Star Wars parody, and Ode to Esme, Memoirs of Captain Nemo, right? So he wrote a lot of different books, basically founded the modern idea of mind war, right? That's the tactics that Esau uses against us, all right? So when we say this is, you know, a war going on, when we say that this is, you know, satanic, what the world is doing, like, it's quite literal, all right? This guy, he wasn't just a chump. He wasn't just somebody, oh, everybody thinks he's crazy. This was a guy who was very heavily involved in the military, very heavily involved in intelligence operations, very evil, very wicked, right? Especially when you talk about the allegations. But even without the allegations, the stuff that is just public knowledge about this guy, Michael Aquino, is very wicked, very evil, all right? So we are quite literally at war with spiritual components here, all right? And 2 Corinthians 10, starting with verse 3, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. This is not a physical war. We are not the zealots, right? We are the servants of the Lord Jesus Christ, all right? He did not fight physically. He wanted to change the hearts and the minds of the people, all right? And Esau is doing the same thing from the other direction, all right? He's trying to bring people closer to Satan, like quite clearly. That's what Aquino's purpose was. That was what he was trying to do. All right, he was very heavily involved in the U.S. military. That's what they are trying to do. That's what the intelligence operations, NATO, all these different, things that Esau is involved with. That's what they're trying to do, is bring people closer to Satan. So what we have to do, we have to fight against that spiritually and bring people closer to God. Verse 4, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. All right? They're not physical, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And that's the thing. That's the thing. We already know who wins. Right? We know it's God who wins. We know it's the Most High who wins. I'm not even, and I'm actually fairly certain that, like, the spirits, even the evil spirits like Satan or Set or whatever you want to call them, they already know who's going to win. They already know the Most High is going to win, right? But it's just wicked and evil men who try to, whether it be fight against this as far as they think that they're going to win, right? It's their pride that leads them to think that there's actually a shot of them beating God, right? But we know that the weapons of our warfare are mighty, right? Even though they're not physical, right? They're not flesh. They're not, guns and bombs and whatnot like they like to use, all right? But they're mighty, because they're spiritual. They're of God, right? They pull down to the pulling down of strongholds, right? God's pulling down these spiritual strongholds in the minds of the people, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, right? Like, for example, Michael Aquino made himself high priest in the temple of Set, in the church of Satan, right? So every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, we cast that stuff down. All right, we cast down these imaginations that, you know, that they can do these things, that it's just okay for, you know, to do whatever you want. No, it's not. We're here to serve God. We're here to serve the Most High. We're not, you know, as what it said, what self-deification. We're not into that. All right. We're bringing all glory, honor, and praise to the Heavenly Father. All right. And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. You see that right there. So we're bringing every thought, trying to bring every mind to the servitude of our Lord. All right. And having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. You see that right there. But it can only start when you start following Christ to the fullest. Right? Because you can't go out here and tell people what to do and you ain't even doing what you're supposed to do. That's hypocrisy. Christ was against that. All right. From there, let's get Ephesians 6 as well. Excuse me. I'm not going to break down the full armor of God, but this is still something worth noting, worth mentioning. Ephesians 6. And I believe I want to start with verse 10. Let me see. Yes. So it says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. All right. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil, right? The mind war, the psyops that the devil has going on. All right. He is wily, right? He is subtle, as the scriptures say, right? That's how the serpent moves, in very subtle ways. Right? They don't come out and tell you they're attacking you. Right? They're not even using the physical force here in America in every case. Right? They're using the media. They're using the social media specifically now. They're using the televisions. They're using the movies, the TV shows. Right? They're using all the news channels. They're using all the different aspects. They're the sports world. Right? They're using all these different aspects to try to keep people asleep. Right? To try to keep people pushed in the wrong direction, pushed in the opposite direction. All right? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Principalities are governments. That's what principalities are. Particularly served by, or particularly ruled by a prince. But just specifically, principalities are, I guess I should say generally, principalities are governments. Right? So that's what we're fighting against. We're literally fighting against the government in a mind war. All right? That's how they're coming against us. So that's how we're coming against them. Against powers. Right? So you read Romans 13, it talks about the powers. Right? The powers that be are ordained of God. The wicked is his sword. All right? They're not going to make it easy for you. All right, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against the rulers of sin in this world. All right, quite literally satanic. All right, against spiritual wickedness in high places like the government, the intelligence agencies, the military, right, the academic institutions. Merrill Lynch is one of the biggest private securities exchange companies, right? It's one of the biggest, what's the proper word? Like hedge fund managers, or I may be calling them the wrong thing, but y'all know what I'm saying. Big money. They're like one of the biggest big money companies, all right? And he worked with all these places. This literal Satanist influenced all these different entities, including NATO, right? And if he was a part of that Operation Gladio, which I'm not sure if he was or not, that's a bit of speculation, but, you know, he also influenced the governments of Europe as well. All right? Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Right? So, I do just want to point out, because this is saying, hey, this is what we're fighting against, right? We are in a war, right? But here's one of the tactics that they use, all right? And this is how we overcome, right? As Paul said, our obedience must be fulfilled, right? This is what he also said to the church of Corinth. In 1 Corinthians 15 and 33, he said, "Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." So don't get it twisted, all right? The media does influence you, all right? Don't get it twisted, all right? Evil communications, whether it be the music, is something that I didn't touch on, but and I say obviously, but I guess I mentioned it briefly when it comes to the Beatles all the way to Jay-Z being influenced by Aleister Crowley. The occult inspiration in the music is also very prevalent, very present. All right. So be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. That's the whole concept of Mindwar, right? It talked about the media, and that can be used to influence enemies, right? Awake to righteousness, meaning wake up to the commandments of God, and I'll point that out real quick in Psalms 119 and 172, because I haven't been on here for a couple weeks, right? So I'll read this. This is one that I like to use for righteousness. There's plenty of precepts for righteousness in the Old and New Testament, but I like this one in Psalms 119 and verse 172. It says, "My tongue shall speak of thy word, for all thy commandments are righteousness." Right? So all the commandments of God are righteousness, right? So when Paul says awake to righteousness, he says wake up and keep the commandments and sin not, meaning do not transgress God's laws. For some have not the knowledge of God, I speak this to your shame, right? So us who know the truth, we should know even more, hey, we got to keep the commandments of God and come out our sins, right? We should be perfecting holiness in the highest order. All right. So from there, I do want to go back to Psalms 83, because this is what it's all about. All right. This mind war, these psyops, this is what it's all about. It's all about keeping the children of Israel away from our power, right? Our power is the Most High. Our power is our God. All right. And if we know who we are, then we know that is the origin of us, right? Our connection is inherent, right? To even use the name Israel means that you're a child of God, means that you're a prince of God, quite literally. So this is Psalms 83, starting with 1. "Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult." So the enemies of God are getting rowdy. They're coming together. "And they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They are proud." All right? They are proud, arrogant. "They have taken crafty counsel against thy people," right? That's the mind war. That's the psyop. It's crafty counsel. All right? "And consulted against thy hidden ones," right? They're hidden because they don't know who they are. All right? People don't know who the 12 tribes are, right? Allegedly. "They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation," right? Split them up, call them different things, so they don't know who they are. "That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance," right? That the Israelites are not called upon by their true names, all right? It says, "For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee," right? And it goes on to list the members of the confederation. But the first, it says, the tabernacles of Edom, right, and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes, right? So that would be your Arabs, your Asians, and other Arabs, right? When it says Hagarenes, when it says the tabernacles of Edom, though, I just want to point this out real quick, and I'll do this over here in Obadiah. When it comes to these mind war and psyop tactics, all right? In Obadiah, it says. Verse 6, it says, "How are the things of Esau searched out?" Meaning they are hidden. All right? That you have to look into what's going on. It's not on the surface. He will not tell you. It has to be searched out. All right, and all the things that they do, all the things that, like, for example, the American government does, the European governments do, as we saw, quite literally tied in with Satanism and all manner of wickedness. All right, we won't know everything that they do. Just point blank, period. They do all manner of wickedness. Only God, and I'll demonstrate that here shortly. That only God is able to know everything that they do. All right, and He will search it out. And we, as I said, I'll show that a little later. How are His hidden things sought up? All right, so even now, I'm just touching the surface of, this is publicly available information. This whole situation with Michael Aquino, this is not like speculation, right? As far as the allegations against him, technically that's speculation because he was never convicted of anything. But all the rest of that is just publicly available information, all right? And that's just the guy who was the most public about it. He published these books. He went on talk shows talking about how he founded this sect of the Church of Satan and whatnot. This is not speculation. This is who he proclaimed himself to be. All right? So, let me get Judith 5 as well, because it pretty much says the same thing as Psalms 83. It just gives a specific case. All right, so I'll get the context. I'm not going to read this whole chapter, but I'll give the context and then jump down to the point. Then was it declared to Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Ashur, that the children of Israel had prepared for war and had shut up the passages of the hill country and had fortified all the tops of the high hills and had laid impediments in the Champagne countries. Right? So Holofernes, as it says, he was the general over the Assyrian army. They're trying to make a resurgence, a comeback during the days of the Persians and Medes. All right, but the Israelites in the book of Judith, specifically in Bethulia, and that's specifically the town it focuses on where Judith was from, they had set up defenses. They said, "No way, right? We're not going to give in. We're not going to bow down." Wherewith he was very angry and called all the princes of Moab and the captains of Ammon and all the governors of the seacoast, right? So he gathered together all the other heathen that were in the region, right? And saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said unto them, "Tell me now, ye sons of Canaan, who this people is that dwelleth in the hill country, and what are the cities that they inhabit, and what is the multitude of their army, and wherein is their power and strength, and what king is set over them, or captain of their army?" Right? So he said, "Hey, tell me more about this people. I don't know much about the Israelites. Y'all people who are neighbors of the Israelites, tell me what's going on." And while they have determined not to come to meet me more than all the inhabitants of the west, then said Achior, the captain of all the sons of Ammon. Right? So this is what I wanted to get to. Achior is giving this speech. He's talking about the Israelite people and their origins. All right. Let my Lord now hear a word from the mouth of thy servant, and I will declare unto thee the truth concerning this people which dwell near thee, and inhabit the hill countries, and there shall no lie come out of my mouth of thy servant. And he gives him good counsel. He's not right about everything, but he gives him good counsel as far as like the history of the people and who they are, right? Verse 17, and while they sin not before their God, right? So while we didn't sin before the Most High, they prospered, because the God that hateth iniquity was with them, right? So that would be during the days of David and the early days of Solomon, right? That's what he's making reference to. Hey, God was with them, and when you look specifically in cases of like Hezekiah and Josiah, where after the people had begun sinning, there was still times of prosperity with righteous kings, right? Anytime a king was righteous, the Most High did not send the enemies against him. As far as like, destruction to the people. And while they sinned not before their God, they prospered, because the God that hateth iniquity was with them. Right? Also during the days of Joshua, I suppose. But when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs, and the temple of their God was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by the enemies. Right? So that's the end of the book of the Chronicles, the end of the book of the Kings, when Babylon came through, destroyed the temple, took the people into slavery in Mesopotamia. and the surrounding areas, I suppose. But now are they returned to their God and are come up from the places where they were scattered and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and are seated in the hill country, for it was desolate. Right? So this is after the return of the exiles during that time period. This is either during the time of like Zerubbabel or Nehemiah, around there, maybe a little after. Let's see. Now, therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against this people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. Right? So this is the counsel that he's given them. He said, look, there needs to be sin in this people for them to lose, right? For their God not to defend them, right? So this is the purpose of the mind war. This is the purpose of the crafty counsel of the Psyop, is to ensure that there is sin among the Israelites. All right, that's the whole purpose. That's why sin is conveyed in the media, right? This is why confusion is conveyed in the media. This is why they're pushing like political agendas, right? Trying to radicalize the left and the right, trying to ensure that people are not only whether it be consenting to all this is going on, or even dissenting, so that they can stir up violence, they can stir up sedition. That's why you see this going on. All right, not only trying to lull the people into a sleep, but if they do awake to the wickedness going on, they don't turn to God. When they do, they instead become radicalized, right? They instead become a secular people, right? And that is political ideologies, right? And they use the music to perpetuate the sin, right? They're not going to take someone who knows the word of God and push them to a point where they are teaching the commandments, right? And anything that like uplifts the people. No, they're going to take the brother who is gang affiliated, talking about death and destruction and selling drugs, and they're going to take him, and all manner of fornication and wickedness, and they're going to take him and make him the biggest star in the world, right? So like that's what they do. It's all a part of the scheme. It's all a part of the crafty counsel, as the scriptures say. It's all a part of the mind war and the psyop. All right. Now, therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against this people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. But if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord defend them, and their God be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. You see that right there? So he gave that counsel and said, look, but if there's no sin in this people, then, hey, hold back. Don't try to fight against them, because you're not going to win. Right? If you read on down, Holofernes did not like that, what Achior told him, even though he gave him good counsel. He did not like what Achior told him. And he went up to the people when they were, keeping the commandments, and he ended up dying, right? Being killed by Judith. And that's the whole story of Judith. So he gave him good counsel here. Holofernes just didn't want to listen. All right. So from there, concerning the hidden things of Esau that I had mentioned in Psalms 10. In Psalms 10, and I'll start with one, jump around. I'm not going to read this whole chapter, but it's all good, because it's all talking about the wicked and what they do. Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? Right? So David is seeing in the spirit. He's seeing all the things going on with the people. He said, where's the Lord at? Why is he not defending the people? All right. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. Right. So persecuting the poor, literally with the ice, we see that literally with how the 1% get all the wealth in this country, and they steal it from the 99%. But also spiritually and mentally through the media, right? With their mind war and their psyops. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined, right? The electronic devices, their technological devices, right? The phones and whatnot. It's actually what they invented these devices for was to keep people asleep. But the phones and the internet and things like that are being used to wake the people up, right? Because you can only hide the truth for so long, and it's coming back to bite them, right? Let them be taken into devices that they have imagined. This whole idea of, they'll be able to bring order out of the chaos that they are, sowing is foolish. It's a foolish concept. It's not. It will never last. You can't rule in wickedness forever. It just won't happen, right? Because that's the fruit of sin is that it brings forth death, right? And that's just how it works. They think they can skirt around that somehow, but that's not how it works. All right. If you sow wickedness, you're going to reap death. That's how that works. Let's see. From there, like I said, all of this is good, but I'm going to jump down to verse 5. It says, his ways are always grievous, thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. Right? So just the idea that you would be able to do this to your enemies and get away with it is insane, right? That you can psychologically destroy the enemy in a mind war, in a psyop type of way, and convert them to your way of thinking. I mean, to think that's going to work, that takes a lot of arrogance to think something like that's actually going to work. He has said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity, right? So he's only speaking mischief and vanity, worthlessness, all right? So jumping down, let's see. Verse 12, I'll start with verse 12 here. Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up thy hand, forget not the humble, right? So that's what David is saying in the spirit. Hey, look, you got your people that's trying to be humble. Hey, don't forget them, right? Watch out for them, save them, deliver them. Wherefore doth the wicked contemn God? Why do the wicked hate God? He hath said in his heart, thou wilt not require it, right? They think they can get away with stuff like this. And then it just so happened that Aquino ended up, offing himself, right? Now, why that was, maybe it's just because he didn't care and thought that he could escape judgment. Maybe it's because he saw what he was doing, right? Maybe them spirits turned on him, right? That's usually what happens when you start conjuring these spirits. They end up turning on you and tormenting you. It's very, very possible. Thou hast seen it, for thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. So the Lord sees, because we read about the hidden things that he saw, the Lord has seen it. He's seen all of it. He sees all things, all right? To requite it with thy hand, the poor committeth himself unto thee, thou art the helper of the fatherless, right? So thou art the helper of these children, for example. We read about that, and the possible connections with the Franklin scandal. Break thou the arm of the wicked and the evil man. Seek out his wickedness till thou find none. Right? So David is saying in the spirit, hey, Lord, hold them accountable for all the evil things that they have done, all the evil things that they do. Hold them accountable. All right? The Lord is king forever and ever. The heathen are perished out of his land. Right? And that's what it will end up being. Right? Specifically, we're not talking about the state of Israel right now, but eventually the heathen are going to be perished out of his land. Lord, thou hast heard the desire of the humble. Thou wilt prepare their heart. Thou wilt cause thine ear to hear, to judge the fatherless and the oppressed, that the man of the earth may no more oppress. Right? So all this, psyop, mind war stuff, it's all going to come to an end. It's all going to be destroyed by Christ that is coming. All right? So from there, I do want to read Luke 14. Concerning the war, because this is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. This is a mind war, so to speak. All right, they are at war against us. We fight in the spirit. We do not war after the flesh, but it is a war. It is a war going on. All right, so let's read this here. He says, Luke 14. I believe I want to start with 26. Yeah, so let me start with 26 and I'll read down through here. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. So understand that. When Paul said your obedience to Christ must be fulfilled, this is an example of the obedience. You got to deny everything else and just turn to the Lord. You got to deny yourself. You got to deny your family. You got to deny everything that you've been taught, everything that you've been living up to this point. You have to be a new creature. You have to be a different person. All right. And that person is Christ Jesus. That's who you got to be like. All right. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. And he said, look, guess what? It's going to get hard. It's going to be hard to do that. You got to bear that burden like I got to bear mine. That's what he's saying here. All right. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sit not down first and count the cost, whether he has sufficient to finish it. So count the cost. Figure out what it's going to take. And do it. All right? Lest haply, after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. So how many have seen a construction project just go on forever and they get like halfway through building it and you're like, what was this? Or like, I know it's like big in Memphis. I don't know if they ever finish road work up there. I've heard it's that way in Canada as well, but like they'll be working on the road forever, like for years. And you're like, what? How are you still working on this? Right? Everybody talks about that when they see like construction projects halfway done or you know, things like that halfway done. Everybody looks at it and mocks. Everybody looks at it and says, what's going on here? What happened here? All right. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. Right. So this is talking about war. All right. The children of Israel literally means prince of God. We are heirs, right? So that means we will be kings, as it says in Revelation 5 and 10, kings and priests, right? So we are kings going against the kingdom that we're currently in, right? And all the kingdoms of the earth when it comes to this Mindwar, Psyops type stuff, all right? They are confederate against thee, as we read in Psalms 83, all right? So we have to consider what it's going to take to win this war. All right? And first it means our own obedience, and then it means casting down the imaginations of others. All right? Able to finish, or excuse me, whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000, or else, while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassage and desireth conditions of peace. Right? So we can't settle for the temple of Set. All right, we can't settle for losing this mind war. We can't give in to this psyop going on. All right. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. You see that right there. So we can't go quietly into the night, so to speak. This is a war. So you have to consider what it's going to take. You have to count the cost. All right? You have to forsake all that you have to be Christ's disciple. All right? So, I'll go ahead and close it out with that there. I'll close it out with Matthew 26. All right? Hope y'all learned something. I know it's different than what we usually do on the Sabbath evenings, but you know, I felt like it was very important. The Spirit was moving me to touch on this. Start right here. Now, when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached to the whole world, there shall also this that this woman have done be told for a memorial of her. So with that, hope y'all learned something. All praise to the Most High for that sister doing a wonderful thing for our Lord. All right. And I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the highest in the name of his son, his word, Jesus the Christ. So y'all fight this war, right? Y'all fight this war. It's a spiritual battle. Come to your own obedience to Christ first, and then cast down the imaginations against him. All right. So with that, I say shalom, and let God be magnified. Happy Sabbath.